Well, good evening again. Okay, thank you, thank you. How many members do we have in the audience? Any WIF members? Yay, thank
Yay!
you. Well, if you're not a WIF member, and some of you are not, we'll convert you before the night is over. Come over to the dark side. But I am Carletta S. Hurt. I am one of the board members for Women in Film and Video. I'm also the VP of Programming, and I'm so excited you came out on a nice rainy Wednesday to be with us. We have Brad Minardi from Barbizon Lighting, who will be giving us an excellent demonstration on the lighting kits that they have, as well as some tips and trade. Any lighting professionals in the room? Any people who actually do little? No, just here to get some general information. That's okay. I don't do lighting either, but it's always good to know. Some things about Women in Film for our non-members. We do meet here once a month, every first Wednesday of the month, our Wednesday One series. Our next Wednesday one is Career and Resume Swap. Our career fair is April the 2nd. So we do a resume swap, get some feedback from professionals who work in the film industry. And the April Wednesday one is on LinkedIn profiles, how to look great online professionally. And in May, mindfulness. We do professionals also and also personal growth opportunities for our members. So we encourage you to do that. And it's a package deal. Those 3 Wednesday ones is our career package. We'll tell you more about that on your way out. What else? So Melissa, who is not here, is our executive director. And we usually have 1 or 2 board members. I don't see any in the audience. Not a problem. Oh. Just me. We just thank you for coming out. Encourage you to enjoy Brad and all he has to offer. Ask lots of questions. We'll be popping around taking pictures for social media, so don't be shy. And yeah, I think that's it. Any questions from the audience? Is your first Wednesday one? Anybody been a first timers? Okay. Well, welcome back for my people who've been here before. Thank you. Oh, and this is the microphone to use. I'm going to leave it back here with Philip. He's going to be our trusty audience microphone handler. So if you need to speak, please wait for the mic because we are recording this for our archives. Thank you. And here's Brad.
Boom, everyone. How's it going? Well, I am so glad to be here tonight. My name is Brad Minardi, and I am with a company called Barbizon Lighting. How many people are familiar with Barbizon? Okay, a couple of you. Barbizon is right here in Alexandria, Virginia. We supply pretty much the DC region right now for all your lighting needs, all your grip gear, small expendables, smaller items, all the way up to a full TV lighting studio package. We're all over the country, so we're a pretty good resource if you're traveling around and you need to make a connection. If you're in a local city and you need gear, feel free to stop in any of our offices. Tonight I'm here to talk about lighting. Pretty cool, right? I saw before that not many of you are actually lighting people. That's nice. So I saw a couple people dabble with a little bit of lighting. What does everyone else just roughly do? If we just want to shout out just quick things, just so I get a good feel of what we're doing. Or more video people, sound people, what do we got? Video, sound. Do we have photography? I think you were mentioning you do both. More photography, digital media. Okay, so we got a really good group here. I love talking about lighting because lighting is a good mix between craft and art. You can definitely, there's a technical side. Obviously, talent needs to be lit. So we can't just shut the lights off on people and pretend we're artsy because that probably won't look very good. But it is a subjective. I mean, everyone's going to light a little bit differently. So everything I say, can be tweaked a little bit, modified, played. No one, get the pitchfork out and try to sit there and say, no, I do this, and boom you off stage or anything like that. Again, this is supposed to be a fun night. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. I know we have a special microphone that we have to use. More than happy to answer some questions. How I want to make the night work is I want to start again by doing a couple different fields of lighting. Obviously, we have 2 very unique sets of lighting. We obviously have portable stuff for when you're, running out somewhere and setting up in the field and lighting. And then we also have the more traditional studio space, which is what we're in right now, which is a whole other type of lighting. When I get to the actual studio space, we'll talk a little bit about green screen lighting. Anyone working and dabbling with green screen right now? Anyone have a thought about working and dabbling with green screen? Industry's going there. I mean, if you watch any kind of movies or anything like that, pretty much everything is slowly going all the way to green screen. So it probably would be a good thing to learn about how to light properly, because it is definitely a little bit different than other lighting. So without further ado, let's start with the portable lighting. Obviously, what I'm going to show you today down here are the new cutting-edge LEDs on the market. Everyone familiar with LEDs? LEDs have now been around for about 5 years or so. It stands for light emitting diode. They are pretty nifty lights because they are very energy efficient. And because they're energy efficient, they use very little power, which means we can actually run them all on batteries. So we no longer need to go find a source to plug into. And they are very lightweight for the most part, which makes them great for a field kit. If you were doing lighting about 10, 15 years ago, your choices for field lighting was pretty limited. You had a lovely kit that had a whole bunch of these like little miniature Fresnels up in the air that all weigh like 10, 15 pounds each, in a big road case that was about like 3.5 feet long by 18 inches by 18 inches. It's like one of those old-fashioned steam trunks that you would have to pull out. Pretty heavy to light. These LEDs now can actually get down to the size of a backpack. So for example, like this is a kit from Roscoe Lighting, which is what this light is here. You could actually get it all the way down into a little tiny backpack now, which is pretty neat. Again, a little 25-pound backpack you could put on. You could run and gun all over the city and no longer, break your back or get your gym workout, whichever one you want to do. So LEDs will come in, will have a little more versatility with color temperatures and everything as well. What I have here today is a bunch of daylight fixtures, but you also have your tungsten fixtures as well, which are going to be more your conventionals. Before LEDs, the only other place you would really find these, this daylight color temperature is in your fluorescent tubes or your HMI fixtures. Fluorescents are green technology, but they are bulky, break easily, and of course they have mercury in them, so they're not the greatest, greenest technology out there. I know, boo, mercury. HMIs are very bright and punchy. However, they take like a while to actually warm up and light up, and they are heavy because you need a big, huge power ballast to power them. So those are definitely not battery operated. So I'm going to fire up my little light panel Vector here from Roscoe. On the back of this light, it actually has just a very simple, dial-based indicator, which allows me to show the percentage of the power that I'm running right now, 0 to 100, and color temperature. This is an individual model that just stays in 5600 daylight, which again, you'll see is a little bit more of this blue color temperature. However, they do make models that are all tungsten, which would be this warmer color, and they even make models that can actually vary between the both of them. Why is that important? It gives you more flexibility in the field, right? If I am inside an office, what do you think I'm going to probably try to light with? Tungsten, right? Yes. We're going to ask questions, so be on your toes, everyone, right? You're going to, we're probably going to light in tungsten, right? Because again, we are actually used to a little bit more having these warmer lights. We just grew up with them from the earliest days of fire and everything. Everything's been more of this amber light. We like this nice amber light. But you know what doesn't really like our amber light too much? Cameras. You know what cameras prefer? They prefer this guy over here, this daylight. Why? I mean, because it gives you a little bit, again, you get a crisper, clearer. It gets even a little bit brighter than what you're going to get out of the tungsten with this. And like right now, I'm only at 50%, so let me fire this all the way up at full. But, is there not bothering anyone, right? Okay. Well, I'm sorry. Now you know how I feel up here, so I'll try to do that. But you can see that this is a very bright light, right, out of a very little portable light. This is a soft fill light, so it's going to be a nice soft diffuse wide array of light. You can see that I'm getting, again, more of a bluish color, which, again, is great for where do you think this will actually also match very nicely? Outside, right? So if you're doing a field shoot outside, you're probably going to want to shoot in a daylight color temperature. So when you have those lights that can actually do the vary in between, you're just actually helping yourself because it's giving you a little bit more versatility. So if you're shooting inside an office one day, you could whip it out, turn it into 3200 tungsten, or if you go outside the next day, you can go run and turn it into a daylight color temperature. Usually when we get into the TV studio, usually we're going to stick in just one color temperature because obviously there's no sunlight that's going to come in here and change up our shot. Again, this is a very soft diffused light. It's designed to stay within probably about 5 to 7 feet of your talent. You can put a whole bunch of different accessories into it, spread lenses to soften it up a little bit. But natively, this is a fairly soft light. You can see that I'm going to turn this down a little bit because it is a very bright light, and I don't want to blind everybody. But if you look at the face of this, and it's actually designed so you can actually look at it. If you notice this one's designed actually as like a little grid pattern. You see that? The LEDs are actually in the side of this, so they're actually reflecting out to you. So this one's actually a little bit easier to look at. When I fire up this other one with directional LEDs, you're going to notice a big difference with that. So this is actually designed to be, again, very nice and close, very soft, and you're going to use this for your face light, your fill light, for that type of shot. So I know some of our folks that were doing photography and everything, this is all going to be very similar too. You could use this, again, to set it up, get a nice smooth field around your subject to light quite nicely. What this is going to, depending on how many lights you have, is going to depend on where you place these lights. So let's just say, for example, you have one light. Where do you think the best spot for me to put my one light if I only have one light in the system? It's going to be right in front, right? So when we put it right in front, that's good. It will give us a nice soft light, but what do you think is going to happen to us? You actually probably will have a little less shadow. You're actually going to get very flat. Because if the light's coming in directly right from me, right, you're not actually going to see much shadows, actually. But what's unfortunate if you don't see any shadows? You lose depth, right? So, your talent's going to look like a cardboard cutout, basically. So ideally, one light's not the best way to light a subject. Now, granted, sometimes that's the only thing. How many people have watched a sporting event or anything at the end of the game? They run out. They usually have like one light, just to quickly put some light out there. So, I mean, it's definitely not, terrible to do it, but you're definitely losing some dimensionality with it. So in lieu of that, you usually go with two front lights. Why two? Again, you can put them usually on the sides. Usually I like to go, in an ideal world, if I was in a studio or field, I like to go around 60 degrees up and then about 45 out. One light coming in here, another light coming in here. On the most basic level, if I just turn them both on at full, or both at a certain percentage, what am I going to get? I'm going to get a nice wrap of light around me, right? So now all of a sudden I'm going to get a little bit more dimensionality. So whereas my front light was only going to just hit my nose, my forehead, that's about it, now I'm all of a sudden going to get some lights that are going to hit from ear to ear, basically, and give me a little bit more definition around my face. Now this is where, depending on what you're doing, there's some art involved in it, right? I mean, if I'm doing something for, let's say, a news piece, right? What do I want? I just want some good light, right? So I'm probably just going to keep them both at full, on me, nice and balanced and even. However, if I'm going to do something a little bit more artsy, maybe a photography piece or something like that, this is where you can then start to, play around a little bit with like key, fill, if you've ever heard those terms before. You're basically going to then be able to, a key is basically going to be like your primary light. Your fill is going to be a soft light that comes in from another direction. So like if I was like standing here for the camera like this, I probably would have a nice key light coming in directly, so I'm lit primarily for the camera, my face, but then I might have a nice soft fill just to give me some nice dimension and break away from the background, basically.
So did you just suggest that when you're changing the 45 altogether, you're speaking of like this?
Yeah.
The key is going to be almost direct and then fill just from one side?
Sure. I mean, that could very well be. Like if I knew that I was going to be speaking in this direction the whole entire time, I might set my key like that. If I was sitting directly front here, I might do a couple different things. I might just put one key here and then a couple of fills if I had more than two lights. If I just had two lights, I might just put one key coming in off of a side, and I still might put that soft light coming in on the reverse 45.
And your shot, basically, you're suggesting is like a 3/4. Thank you.
Oh no, we've missed that whole part. We're gonna have to edit it all out completely.
I was asking about the angle of the key and the fill when you were referencing the camera, and you answered that, and they heard that part. And then the other question I already forgot.
I couldn't hear you without the microphone. No, it's okay. Again, this is where we get a little bit more subjective, right? Again, because sure, if I have my only two lights and the cameras were right behind me, right, and I'm going to go do a presentation forward, right, I still want to get a nice wrap. So I might make a key here, coming in still on my 45 degree. I might put my fill still here. Now, if this was a very serious piece, I'm probably going to keep both of them at the exact same color temperature and intensity and everything. And I'm just going to have just an equal amount of just white light coming in on me at all angles. So really the key and fill doesn't become too important. However, if I become more artsy with it, and I want to see like a really harsh shadow with, and this is where we talk about shadows, right? So if I come in with a really harsh shadow, bright light coming in on this side, and I make this side really soft, what do you think is going to happen to my face? This half of me is going to be lit, pretty crisply. This is going to have a whole bunch of shadows and soft. That's going to be great for your photography, a little bit more artsy pieces, stuff like that. You probably aren't going to do nightly news, with someone's face half lit, the other half, completely fuzzed out. Again, this is where back to art versus craft, right, with lighting. There are certain aspects where you're going to want to, be pretty flat with your lighting, nothing, no really artsy, it's just the craft of it. It's just put a lot of light on your talent so they can be seen properly. If you're doing a little bit more photography, then you're going to want to make that a little bit more artsy where, again, you can change intensities, levels, put different colors on it, stuff like that.
Part of my confusion is, are you still speaking of, like, with the artsy example, with the camera here at like 45 degrees to basically where your face is, and then also having the lights at the different temperatures that you just described? That would be a possible way of shooting for
That
some
would be a
arty
possible
effect.
way, yes.
Sure. Okay. Thanks.
Actually, with like in this scenario, right, because we have multiple cameras right now, right, this is where we would quickly get into the realm of a lot more than 2 lights. So if I were going to really light this properly, this is something where I might have a key up here, a key here, a couple of fills, multiple backlights. It wouldn't be uncommon that I would probably, if I was in a TV studio and doing this one position, I had the cameras behind and on the sides, that I wouldn't have 6 to 8 lights on the talent to light that, to really ring that light. And in that case, when I start to do this, or when I start to do this, we can then actually key it in. And that's going to be a little bit more in our studio lighting, jumping ahead. So, but that's usually the setup that you'll see in a lot of TV studios is like a 3-camera setup for interviews and stuff like that. But we'll get into the TV studio. So back into our field lighting, your normal go-to is probably going to be about 2 lights. Ideally, try to get back and forth. If you can, you're going to want to add a 3rd light. Where do you think you want to add one more light, perhaps? Exactly, your backlight. And this is, again, your 3-point lighting, right? Key, fill, and backlight. What does that backlight do for you? Well, the backlight will do a couple of things for you. If you're in the middle of a field, it's not going to do too much, right? Because there's not doing that. The purpose of the backlight is actually to light your shoulders, top of your head, back, to, again, pop you off and give you a little definition. I mean, look, imagine me on this curtain right now, right? If all light was just coming from the front, what am I going to do? I'm going to get sucked into this curtain, right? Adding that backlight is going to light up my shoulders and everything, and it's going to allow the camera to see that I'm actually in front of this black curtain, and I'm not a part of it. And that will give you a little bit, better, look when you put everything together in the end. Of course, that's what I would ideally recommend in, your portable field lighting kit is about 3 lights. Again, can we do it with less? Sure. Can we do it with more? Definitely. But really, you want to probably strive for that 3-light kit to at least give you the ability to get a nice wrap around for front light, and then having something to kick you off whatever you are behind for backlight purposes. Oh, you got to wait for the microphone, right?
Where do you actually place the backlight?
Okay, good question, right? So where would you place the backlight light? Well, it will depend, right? If that was my camera there, this would probably be pretty silly if I put it like right behind me, because I'm not going to see that. And also, even if I did raise it up above me, you probably don't want it in your shot to see a big hunking stand and light right behind your talent, right? So the backlight's okay to, again, if we were doing this shot in the field, it might come in from the side here a little bit more. I might be able to actually do exactly what I'm doing here, where if I'm standing right here, I might be able to just hit it off camera up a little bit just to light. Obviously, you don't want to go too extreme, because if I go too extreme, then this side's going to look a little unbalanced, and in that case, you might need a second backlight to come in over here. Again, very subjective stuff, and it's going to change from time to time. If I'm in an office, right, and there's a back wall like right in this, and I'm like stuck in the corner, we're going to put that light in a very different location than if I'm in the middle of a field. So it's a little bit subjective, but you want to try to get this as far back and up as possible without obviously interfering in your shot. And sometimes even maybe not even all the way up. I mean, sometimes I'll see people put them down low and just sort of kick up as well. Because again, the higher you go with your lights, again, you're not going to get this quite as much in the field, right? But if you can, If you get them too high, what's going to happen? You're going to start to get shadows under your eyes. With this, a lot of talent doesn't like that. It makes them look old, and they'll get very upset with you. So really, you want to really make it. It's the truth. I'm sorry. Like I said, again, remember, first time up here speaking in front of people and cameras and everything like that. Usually, I'm just hiding in the back of the light, behind the lights. No, it's true. I'm usually hiding back there with those tech guys back there. So yeah. So I mean, in that case, I mean, I've seen people too. If they're really worried, or you have someone that's really wrinkled with this. You might actually even add a fourth light just underneath coming in from the bottom, just to like sort of uplight, and that will actually get rid of shadows under the neck, nose, eyes. If you add a fourth light coming up.
What would you call that?
Face light, uplight. If we were in a traditional studio, again jumping ahead, again sometimes it's like a desk light. They'll actually build a light into the news desk or something like that, just so you can get that uplight position. It really depends. I mean, I know a lot of people that do photography and everything like that will actually have that uplight for even just simple stuff like portraits. Like if they're doing like ID badges or something, they might just have that nice smooth light coming down from below just to get a nice even wash as much as possible. So this again is a very nice soft fill, good for about 5 to 7 feet out there. Once you get past 5 to 7 feet, it is a very bright light, as you've illustrated already. But after a certain amount of feet, it's really going to drop off because it's designed to throw light all over the place. So the next type of light that we're going to have is we're going to have this Nila Zala light, which is using directional LEDs. Now I'm going to fire this one up. This one's very bright too. So let's see how this one goes. And there we go, right? So we got it shining up there. Sparing you all, I'm not shining it right into your eyes for now, so bear with me. If everyone doesn't believe me, I will shine it back down on everyone. Again, you can see that this is a very directional light, right? We're hitting all the way to the back of the studio right now, which is probably about 35 feet or so. This is a light that you can now set up in the back of if you were doing an interview or something, or doing someone speaking in the back of an auditorium or something like that, and you have to set up behind everyone. You can't get a light 5 feet away from them. This is a light that you're going to probably switch over to and use. Again, energy efficient LED. Very cool to touch and everything like that. It can even be run on a battery as well, but it's just a different types of LEDs. These are much more directional LEDs that are going to throw the light a long distance, then fill like this light right over here. Again, this is a light that, again, if I'm in the back of that auditorium, I can throw completely far. Now let's say that you bought this kit because you do a lot of work where you do need to throw distances with your LEDs. You still can use this type of a light close up. Well, how do you do that? You use the accessories that can come with the light. So this one comes with this little pack right here. And in it, you have two things. You actually have diffusion, hard gel diffusion, and you actually have color correction. So again, if you don't have a bicolor light that can change from tungsten to daylight, if we needed to warm this up inside, I can just drop in a color correction gel into this. So I'm just going to go into the accessory holder up here. And throw that in. And so now, right off the bat, now again, I have a much warmer light. You can see that I went from... Is that the diffusion and? Nope. Right now, this is just a color correction, right? So the question was, is this, diffusion or is this color correction? Right now, this is just a color correction. So you can see that I have this very nice, 5600 blue. I put in my my CTO, which stands for, you get that orange more like, CTO goes to the orange, CTB is going to go to like a blue. So we obviously wouldn't put a CTB in a blue light. We would probably put a CTB in one of these guys. Whereas this one, we're going to use our CTOs. But you can see that now I've warmed that up. So then the next thing is obviously those diffusion. And those are these nice little hard gels right here. Let me see. They all come different degrees. I got a 10, 20, and let's say this one is a 60-degree lens, right? So a 60-degree lens is going to give us a nice wide spread on it. So we'll put this into the light now. And you can see that very quickly we're going to now be able to soften this out. So if you've seen that before, you can see we're very spotty right now, right? We're only getting a very narrow section here. If I put my 60-degree gel in, all of a sudden we soften this up. And now very quickly now, this is also going to now match our panel light, right? So we can use this light a little bit closer to people and use this as a nice soft fill light if we were doing something a little bit more intimate. These are very bright lights to look at. I mean, you have to sort of suck it up. I mean, you know, the number one thing that your talent's going to say to you is it's too bright. It's too bright back there now, right? So you have to, so you can dim these down. The old lights you actually have to, you know, because they are actually usually don't have dimmers on them, usually use like metal screens to knock the intensity down. Luckily on this one, there's just a little button on the back here that I could actually just toggle down. And all of a sudden now I can just go down from 100% all the way down to whatever we want. So if we were shooting closely and we didn't want to completely destroy our talent, you know, I just put this light at like 40%. And now you can see very quickly I can get a nice soft fill light off of me and keep this light only 4 or 5 feet away from your subject. So again, it's really just going to depend on what you're going to be shooting for. You have so many questions here. We might just have to keep the mic with you.
But when you do those, the gel diffusion and the color correction gel, does that changes your focal length, right? You can't throw that 35 feet anymore.
Correct.
Right?
No. Exactly. That's exactly the point. If I go back to this, and you're probably all going to be blind, so I'm just going to put the barn door up a little bit so I don't completely blind you. But if I shine this to the back, you can see I no longer am hitting anywhere near that 35 feet. I've now made this light something that's really going to be useful to only about 7 to 10 feet or so, sort of like our soft fill light. Exactly. So again, it gives you a little bit more versatility, right? I mean, so it really depends on what you're trying to shoot. If you're shooting something where you know you're going to be doing a lot of long throw stuff, you might want to just start off with a kit like this. If you're looking for something that's just a really softer light and you're doing a little bit more close-up intimate stuff, then you're going to look for like one of these panel lights, which are a little bit softer and good for a little bit more close-up shots.
Would you say that if you're doing the close-up, the first one you showed us would be superior to the second one, even with the accessories?
I wouldn't say that. I definitely wouldn't say that. It really definitely depends on what your preference is with lighting. I've seen people put on this type of thing like a Shimura softbox. Anyone ever see those softboxes that you see those big like pillow-looking things on the front of a light? That's like a Shimura softbox. And I'll see plenty of people put that onto this light, and that will make this light just as soft as this fill light. It just makes it just so much bigger. These LEDs, again, they are giving some heat, and you got to get the heat off the LED. So the more powerful LEDs that you have, you're going to usually find heat sinks on them, which are big metal, plates basically to pull the heat away from those LEDs. Or you're even going to find some fans. If you get onto the really, really big studio stuff, you're going to find something with a fan in it. Now, some people will be, my sound guys, probably see my sound guy, physically shaking when he heard fan. He's, those sound guys don't really like those sounds. I'll pick on people all the time. I'm sorry. But, some people will be like, oh, no, I can't have that fan because it's going to interfere with my camera and stuff like that. And that could be a real consideration, for what type of light you use. You got to be particularly careful with that, like in a big studio like this. If all of a sudden we have 80 fans going at full, we're definitely going to get some more noise that we might have to either, cancel out into sound, or, we might not be able to use those lights at all.
Can you kill the fans, when you're shooting and then turn them back on, or they're all individually operated? It's not practical?
So there are a couple lights on the market that will give you the ability to turn off the fan. Some of, like, for example, a company called Electronic Theater Controls, some of their higher-end lights do allow you to turn the fan or shut the fan down. You got to be careful with it, obviously, because again, if you shut the fan off and you overheat the LED, you're going to destroy the LED. LEDs hate heat. So despite the fact that they're green technology and they're not giving off too much heat, anything over like 100, 120 degrees will start to destroy the LED chip, and that will render your LED useless. So you definitely, you definitely want to, be careful with that. I mean, there's some applications that it's okay in. Other applications you probably want to be careful, particularly if you're outside or something like that. And the sun's beating down on it, you definitely don't want to overheat that LED. Most of these, again, like this little light here from Neela. Again, it's called a Zala. It has a heat sink. This whole entire back metal piece is more or less the fan. Not a fan, the heat sink. So there is no fan on this one, so it is completely quiet. And it can run pretty much, out in the Sahara Desert all the way to the Antarctica. They've tested it. So it has a wide range just by using a metal heatsink on the back of it. There are, other fans that, again, will have a little bit narrower color temperature use range, but, it really depends on the type of light that you're looking for. When it has a heat sink, though, what do you think it does to the weight of the light? It makes it go up. So again, this is why a lot of the panel lights you're going to find are actually made out of like a plastic material, make some a lot lighter because again, they're not using as powerful LEDs, they're a lot softer. They can get away with just a small fan or a very small heat sink. These big powerful LEDs are going to definitely, you know, need to have a bigger heat sink on them, which will make them heavier. So what does that mean for us? That means this is, again, while we said, okay, this is a little bit more versatile for, you know, shooting, you know, long distance throws and stuff like that. If we're not doing that all that often, you know, it might not be worth having this light just because of the added weight. You might add 30 to 40 pounds to your field kit, which probably might not be happy for anyone. Make sense so far? Any questions? I know we talked about a lot of stuff right now. Let me get you the special mic just so we can know. I know. I hear you.
What's the difference between a softbox light and the panel light?
Okay. The difference is, again, first off, a softbox is a physical attachment to the light. It is again, usually looks like sort of it pops out like a diffusion material, like a soft fabric out away from the light a little bit more. It could actually go on any light. I mean, I've seen people put a softbox on a soft light. It doesn't really make too much sense, but you can do it. It really just really softens that light quite a bit, like to what this panel light is doing. You're going to probably see that more on, again, more your directional type of a light where you're going to put a softbox on. But again, you can put a softbox onto a soft light. You're just going to get a really, 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 really diffused light.
Can this panel light do basically anything a softbox can do?
Yes, basically yes. You're going to get a lot of the same features. You're getting out of this soft light, this soft light right here. We're getting a really soft feel. You know, again, no harsh shadows, a lot of light just splashing all over the place, and it's sort of like what a softbox is going to do. Again, you can put that onto a soft light as well. You just sort of like double soften it up. I mean, I've seen people do it because they're really out for their, you know, they really want to help their talent as much as possible. So some people will tell me that this is way too bright to look at. And if this is way too bright with the LEDs facing sideways, you know, then there's not much more I could do other than throwing more hard gel diffusion in front of this light or putting that softbox onto that light. But good question. I mean, again, and this is back to that also, again, just the art versus craft, and everyone will have something different. I've sold studios that require a softbox on everything. I've had people where I just sit there and say, it is a softbox, basically, and they're like, cool, we're done. So hopefully that answered your question. Any other questions? Okay. Don't start booing or anything because you could get mic'd or anything like that. Okay, so any questions with the field lighting portion of this this exercise? Right, end scene. Oh wait, yes.
Sorry, if you're only budgeted for one light, what are you suggesting? If you're only budgeted for using one light, what do you suggest doing? For interviews, that's all I really need to do. And so I only have an LED light. Do I then need, what can I do as a second light? Because a lot of times, too, I'm dealing with fluorescence
Okay.
up above because
Okay.
I'm going to do it in offices and stuff
Sure,
like that.
good question. So so if you're not doing the long range throws and everything like that, I would probably say it's going to be some type of panel light. If you find that you need to vary the color temperature, then you're going to definitely get one that could do like a bicolor color temperature like that. Remember, you can do anything with a soft light. Soft lights are very forgiving, right? I mean, you can see that. I'm going to shut off my long range one here, and I'm going to turn this one up. You can see that this light, again, is splashing pretty much all over here. So with one light, you're getting quite a bit of coverage with it. So the soft light is definitely going to be a lot more forgiving for you if you are using limited lights. I mean, you can put the one light. Again, your subject will be a little flat. If you can get a second panel light, that would be good because it can give you a little bit more dimensionality.
What if you only have one light? Is that
But if you only have one light, then I would have to say, then I would probably say you probably want to get a...
So I have an LED, and then a lot of times when I'm shooting, I'm having to deal with offices and their overheads. So is it best to turn off the overheads and use that and try to get another lamp or something
Sure,
like that?
yes. I mean, in an ideal world, I would always say if you're going to be in an office or anything like that, right, you really want to try to isolate as much as possible the other light in the room. So in an ideal world, I would say, yes, sure, you probably do want to shut the fluorescence off and do that. Now, that might not be feasibly possible, or you just might need to go with it, right? I mean, because again, if you're in an office building, most likely it's probably going to be some, garish 4,400 color temperature that doesn't match anything that we have. So that bicolor light would actually be handy because you could dial in that other color and then match it to that room. A lot of times, if you have like a 3,200 or a 5,600, it's not going to match, and you're going to have two different color temperatures. So I would say that you probably, if you could only get one light in the room, you probably would want to start off with a panel light that has the ability to somehow change the color temperature. You can do that with the lights that are bicolor. Again, if you have one that's already purchased, right, you already have one that's already one color temperature, this is where your gel comes in handy, either the hard gel or the soft gel, and you'll sort of be able to match that light. I mean, again, your goal is to get upwards of more, but again, it's not necessary. It just gives you a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more modeling capabilities in your space.
Could you give me any critical speeds and feeds on yours versus this old piece of plastic I have here?
Whoa, man. We're all friends here with everyone's manufacturer. They're watching me. I can't, disparage anybody's lights right with that.
I think yours are will far surpass this, but I'm just saying, is there some critical information you can lend to something like that? That's 2 or 3 years old, maybe 4 years old, somewhere in there. You mentioned earlier about blinding people, and that one certainly does because it doesn't have the grid that yours
Correct.
has.
Yeah. So first off, why I'm looking at this one, this is more of your standard, you'll see a lot of these. The first company that came out with a light like this was light panels, and they're called the 1x1. And sort of 1x1 has sort of become that generic name like Windex or anything else. Anything that looks like this light is aptly called a 1x1. Anyone want to guess why? It's 1 foot by 1 foot. Really clever stuff. You probably do have a light that's sort of like this. Most of you probably do if you already have an LED. This has probably been around for like about 5-6 years. This one, yes, this one is a very basic light. It does use lower wattage. It uses lower wattage directional LEDs. So what does that mean for you? That means that it is going to give a very soft light effect, but it's not going to throw. This light's not going to throw 35 feet. This is only going to be good for, about your 5 to 7 feet. And that's like your light panels and all these other ones. I mean, there's like 15 companies now that make a 1x1 panel. With this one, again, I mean, it's rudimentary. I mean, again, your features are it's obviously a little bit more difficult to change the lenses. It's going to be harder to just quickly go into the field and throw barn doors or anything on just because there's no accessory holder. So this one, you're not going to be able to put like the barn doors. You just can't go grab a hard gel and throw it in. However, because this one's all plastic, I would suspect that this doesn't get too hot. So you could always tape it on and stuff like that. I mean, it's an okay light. I mean, again, the principle is more or less the same. Again, I'm just feeling that this one's a little plasticky. With that, no accessory for batteries or anything like that, to hold on to it. And it's just a very basic on-off and DC power control with a little dimmer into it. But, I mean, again, this is sort of the similar technology to this. It's just going to give you that 5 to 7 foot, soft light throw.
What is the square on yours? What's the dimension?
This one's about 8 inches or so. Again, my one that I brought along is again Roscoe's Vector light. It's a brand new fixture that's been out for about a little less than a year now. It's actually using their technology that they've developed for about 5-6 years ago, which is this grid pattern. They're the only one that's really going to have this offset grid. They actually designed this a ways back to actually be like a 1/4 inch thick by different sizes. You could actually get this stuff in like 5 foot by 8 foot panels. So if you're going to light like scenery or anything where you need to backlight it, this is a great little product. I've seen this put into a lot of different things, even like kitchens. If you're going to do like underlighting kitchen and everything like that, this is a product that, when it's not in its little hard shell, is only about a 1/4 inch thick and can be built into a lot of set pieces and other stuff like that. Again, back to that desk light example that we were talking about, that might be a perfect example when it's get pulled out of this metal case to just build into a set piece or something like that. But good question. Again, like I said, it really, again, they all have similar things. I mean, for example, your light panel is going to just be more that name brand technology, a little bit wider known. But there's plenty of stuff. I mean, in this world, you can go and find 15 other things built in China. And, more or less does the same thing and probably is going to be a lot cheaper, but you do pay, it's one of those things you pay for what you get out of that light. And again, some of the simple features that you're missing on that light could be the decision maker if you're going to, stick with it or not. But good question. Anything else before we move on to studio lighting?
When using the soft light, is it better to dial it up, pull it away from your subject? Oh, yeah. When using the soft light, is it better to dial it up and pull it away from your subject, or dial it down and push it closer?
Let's see. I mean, again, this is going to be back into more of that, subjective way of how you light, how you want to light and stuff like that. I mean, it feels like, to me, like personally for me, I would actually do neither. I would, put my talent somewhere and set my light to what I need it to be. I wouldn't go crazy, setting it up high and then pulling it back or anything like that. Because remember, I have that full control. These lights are very, the newer lights, right, have a lot of feature and functionality. They have dim control. They have color temperature control. You have a lot of accessories that you can pull onto this light. So this is a light that you really want to just set your talent, set it up, and then fix it to what you want it to be. Now, on maybe some of the older stuff, maybe you do need to do that a little bit more. If you have an old school, scoop or Fresnel or something that you really can't do too much control, sure, maybe you do turn it up at full and then pull it back until your camera likes what you're seeing. But that's not necessary. I mean, I would prefer, actually, honestly, that you probably set your talent up, set your light where you need it to be, and then go for it. And remember, back to the point of this, it depends also what light we're talking about, right? Because again, this light, you're not going to set 45 feet away from the subject. Otherwise, you're not going to get any light. This is something that you're going to have to inherently set, 5 to 7 feet away from your talent. Whereas this light, you might be able to move and actually position it a little bit more. So hopefully that answered that question. Oh man, we're just all of a sudden exploding with questions. We'll go right over here, and then we'll move over.
Just a couple, 3 questions ago, you suggested something I wanted to clarify. You don't want your different light sources to be of different color temperatures. Is that correct?
Typically. I mean, typically you don't want it. I mean, you want to match it because your camera's going to read this all differently, right? I mean, you might want to do it if you're doing some more artsy pieces, right? I mean, there's nothing that stops you. I mean, I saw a trick one time where someone took this daylight blue, that 5600, what you get out of this one, overexposed the camera to it, and it looks like looks like your talent is in the middle of the night because that blue overexposes, and all of a sudden you get this really blue light. Even though when we're looking at it in normal, we're just looking at it visually, we're getting just this normal standard 5600 color temperature out. The camera, once it gets overexposed, is all of a sudden seeing this complete different, color. So you can get very artsy with it. But if you have a pile of different, color temperatures in a room, you're obviously going to things are going to be clashing. And to the more subjective part of it is about lighting. Again, you are trying to cast, if you're not trying to light, just specifically just to put light onto the talent, you also are trying to trick the brain into thinking something else is happening. Right? This gets into more of that theatrical, artsy type of a feel, right? I mean, I might want to pretend I might have light coming through a window or something like that, or maybe I am in that office shot and I need to, make it really feel like there is light coming through that window because I'm in a dark, cloudy day, but I really want to show like we're outside or something like that. Clearly, I'm not going to go like pump, a completely different color temperature in. That I might want to match it, to what outdoors is, or I might want to match it to what the desk lamp next to me is, So it really depends on that situation, but you really want to try. I would think that if you're just trying to get even base lighting, you want to try to keep one color temperature. Otherwise, your eye is just going to be like, why is this blue? Why is the top of my head blue? Why is the left side of my face, orange? And why is this some completely other color?
Great, thank you.
Next question.
Oh, I was just wondering about when shooting outside, and I don't know if that's an option, like an example of what I'm thinking about, but if you don't have power sources outside and you're looking for like battery powered options, is that something typical, and any recommendations?
Excellent question there, because again, on the old school lights, when we had these old school Fresnels and everything like that, they weren't battery operated. You had to plug into power, or you need to bring a big, huge, like 30-pound brick onto, next to you to power those lights for a couple of minutes. A lot of the more modern lights are going to have a built-in battery pack. My friend in the back there is showing me that he does have a portable battery pack of some sort. Again, it does the trick, right? It's a battery, it powers the light. I sure would probably want something that, could, mount that a little bit tighter to the back of the light so it just doesn't, because you know what I would do, the first thing I would do, you know what I have a terrible habit of doing? Forgetting something, right? How many stands I've left, on site somewhere is like astonishing. And hopefully, my boss doesn't hear that, being recorded right now. But, I always leave something, whether it's a cable, something like that. The first thing I would do if I had a battery that was completely, detached from the light, my batteries would be missing for the shoot. And I would get all the way out there, and all of a sudden I would have no battery to it. So, but again, this is just, again, it doesn't mean it's bad or wrong. It's just something that, some lights will have them already built into the back of the lights and everything like that. That'll make it just a little bit easier to use. Some of them will have more of a detached battery, like this one here. You're going to probably hook it onto the yoke, which again is sort of like an in-between the two things. Most of the batteries are usually additional accessories, so unless you're buying a full kit, just make sure that you actually do get that, because it's not inherently that a light is going to come with a battery. Usually the light will just come with the light, and then just like the barn doors, everything else, you're going to buy that as a separate accessory.
In your experience, do you find the panels to be a smart videographer's flag or a flag replacement?
Like now, again, are you meaning like a physical flag? Like,
Flag, yes.
No, again, I wouldn't say it like that. Again, flags and stuff like that are, very different, ways of light, another different way of lighting, depending on how you're using it. Some people are bouncing light. Some people are, using it to cut light. Again, like, I've seen people use, flags as like a glorified big, large barn door that I might just put out here on another stand just so I can cut off this side of the room. I've seen, shots where, people are running around, bouncing light and, trying to reflect light and do other fun, different things. So I wouldn't necessarily say that, you're going to replace or do anything with, a panel light over anything else, other than the fact that this panel light's going to be very, very soft. So, anything that you put in front of it, a barn door or anything like that, is not going to like really crisply cut. I don't know, did that answer your question, sort of?
Yes.
Okay. Hopefully, Catherine's my film, TV person in the back. Hopefully I answered that sort of all right. She's glaring at me, so I don't know. Hopefully I got that all correct. Any other questions? Okay, everyone. Well, let's move on to studio lighting, although we sort of got into quite a bit of studio lighting here. We're doing pretty good on time and everything like that. What's different in the studio? Well, we are a lot more controlled environment, correct. So this is where we're going to have a lot more, where we actually, again, are going to be a lot more like specific and isolated and really focusing on it. And again, in the end of the day, your field shooting is going to be good, but it's not going to be great. Unless you're really spending a lot of time to pre-set up stuff, a lot of the stuff is like run and gun type stuff. In your studio, you're going to hope that you're going to really light everything to the T and make sure you have the full amount of control as possible. So for our face lighting, obviously we're going to do a very similar effect, right? We're going to have our keys, we're going to have our fills. This is where we're going to talk about where cameras are, right? Again, if it's a one-person camera, we might be able to get away with our front lights, key fill, backlight. If we are doing multiple cameras, this is where we might need to upgrade, the amount of lights that we have up there. Another thing that this is going to talk about is where, how many talent people, how much talent is on stage, right? So far, we are really more or less talking about just one person, right? But what happens if I'm doing a full interview with 2 people on the set? What do you think I need to do? I need to light everyone, right? And I'm going to need really that whole entire system of light for each and every person on stage. Why I mentioned, a lot of places will have like a 3-point camera system is usually this is good for like an interview process, right? I'll usually have my camera left, right, and then one in the back. Why? Because my back camera here will get a nice wide view of 2 of us talking. Normally, when we're playing just like we're playing in a theater or something, an audience, right? So normally I would be standing here, right? And then I'd be looking conveniently at my one camera, and this would be my camera to look at. And obviously, if I'm looking at this camera as talent 1, I need my key light, I need my fill light, I need my backlight for me here. My other person, talent 2, might be standing over here, facing my other camera, which means I need another key light, another fill light, another backlight as well. When I go out to the wide shot, I might need more light as well because, again, we have nothing coming from the front. Or maybe we do, depending on where we put our keys and fills. Maybe these lights that I hung up here will double up. If I don't, maybe I have to add another 1 or 2 so that I get the whole entire desk area under another pool of light. Make sense? So sit there and think about that. That's a lot of lights, right? So you start seeing these big, we've seen the election coverage, I'm sure, right? You see these networks putting in, 8, 10 people. That means, that really ideally, unless everyone's sardined together and you could use multiple lights, usually everyone will have roughly 3 lights together. And it's not uncommon to see a studio that has 100 to 200 lights for a little tiny, 30 by 30 studio. So the reason why they have so many is because, again, they just need all that type of control. Again, but for the most part, when you're in that studio, you are trying to get a nice, clean, even light, particularly for that news type of application. If you're doing photography in a studio, you're going to have a little bit different. But there's also another big thing that you're going to have in the studio, most likely, which is going to be some type of background, right? And depending on what that is, that's either going to be a hard set piece, fabric curtains, or something else back there. A green screen. But, green screen will be a very different beast in a second. But what's the same deal that we need to do? We need to kick ourselves off that, right? But what happens to the set or the curtain behind us? It absorbs the light, right? But does it have light right now? No, right? This is something that we're going to now have to add in the studio now because we actually have to treat whatever's behind us as sort of like talent as well, right? Because, you don't want to, there's nothing worse than looking at something and then all of a sudden seeing harsh shadows on, your set pieces or your curtain or anything like that. Because remember, these lights are for me. They are not for this. Again, if I set these lights up, and of course this studio right now is not orientated for how we're sitting right now, but if I had my key fill hitting me, right, where's that light going to fall? Somewhere down here, right? Which means if I don't have anything lit up on this is all going to be dark and might not look very well on camera. Maybe you're trying to do that artsy thing. Great. A lot of people will put some type of light. And do you conveniently see what this studio is doing? What do we have? Lights that ring pretty much everything to light up that background. So that's another thing that in a studio we're going to need to account for. So very likely, if you might be the 3 lights for your talent, but you also now need a couple of lights back for your set piece behind you, your desk, and you can see that we're just starting to multiply and add a lot more light. What did I say is another light that a lot of people will add, to eliminate the shadows under the neck and face light, right? Again, so that might be something that we build into the news desk or something coming in, or maybe like a little panel light like this where we can put into the desk so we can actually light up the talent from below and get rid of all the shadows and under the eye and everything like that. Yes?
Are there any lights that could work as both video and photo lights? I mean, that could be bright enough to take the place of, a speed light. Mm-hmm.
Well, again, it will feel like, because I answered this question right before we actually started tonight, which was very similar, is there different lights and everything? And yes and no. You can use any of these lights for photography, right? If I set these lights up, I can have a look for video, or I can have it for photography. There isn't a light that's going to strobe or anything, so if you're looking for strobes or anything like that, that's going to be a very different type of light. I know a lot more photography is, again, just a quick flash with a strobe. That you're not going to get out of a studio light per se. And in that case, you're probably going to want to set those up to so that you have that flexibility. If you were only doing purely, photography, you might want to set up your photography studio with strobes or something like that. But you can, again, if you set this up and you're okay with leaving it up there, then I wouldn't see why you wouldn't have any issue with it. It's not going to give you that quick strobing effect, but you will get nice even light for when you shoot. And again, I mean, a lot of people, again, it depends on how you're even shooting. I mean, a lot of people are now doing, burst shots and everything now with these cameras with so much memory and everything like that. Some people are almost shooting, in essence, either burst shots or video, getting in there. So, the strobe might not even be appropriate at that point if you're continuously shooting, just looking for different looks. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Again, it's really going to be how you're going to set up your camera, how you're going to shoot. If you're only doing purely photography, obviously your photography studio is going to look very different than a video studio. But you can make both of them work together. Any other questions with that? Okay, so let's go to green screen, right? Look at what I have behind my curtain here. A green screen. It's green. It can be blue. It could be a variety of different things. Anyone know why we have this lovely color and why we pick either a neon green or a neon blue to key? It's not a natural color. What we're basically doing with a green screen or blue screen is we're basically putting a surface behind so that later in post we can go in and we can pull that and isolate that out of our shot and replace it with something else. I'm a pretty big spoiler. Hate to break it to most of you, but if you've seen any kind of big blockbuster movie, in modern history, it's all fake. Yeah, I know. I'm so sorry. You don't know how angry my mom was when I sat there and told her like one night we were watching something and I'm like, that's fake, that's fake, that's fake. She kicked me out of the house. I mean, it was pretty sad because she's like, I'm ruining the magic of movies. I mean, again, in this day and age, obviously, it's very hard to build, crazy sets. We can't go to Mars. We can't go running around the woods. Oh, maybe Leonardo and, Reverend did run around the woods for 2.5 hours. Maybe that one's real. But, for the most part, these big flashy scenes, it's all computer graphics. It's all made up. It's all, done with a green or a blue screen. We might use a green screen because actually, there's not much of this color in the real world. If I had my piercing blue eyes like some, unnamed nightly news anchors, I might have to, switch a different color. I might not be able to use a blue screen because my eyes would disappear. And that's actually what happened because, believe it or not, one of the earliest screens were actually a blue screen. But because, if you have too much blue or your tie is blue or you're wearing a blue suit jacket, those people start to disappear. So then you might need a green screen. You know what I'm saying?
That could be fun.
Well, sure, and really, I mean, the truth of the matter is you can key off of anything, really. You can set your computer to key off of anything. So, I mean, it can be red, it can be this color blue. The only problem with that is obviously I would, disappear. Usually you want to be able to, have everyone else normally on stage. So, this is what you're going to get with the green screen. But what do you notice? I already noticed when I opened it up when I was just looking at, you all in the front here. What happened? What am I getting a lot shine at me? I'm getting a lot of green bounce, right? And this is why lighting a green screen is very different than, or a little different than lighting a traditional, studio or set. First and foremost, again, if this is reflecting a whole bunch of green, which is almost overpowering a backlight, right? What do you think's happening to my shoulders and everything like that? I'm getting a green glow. So what do you think the computer is going to do when it sees, most likely, me in the computer? It's going to be what? It's going to try to take it out, and what's going to look like? What's going to happen to me? Well, I wish I could, lose like 10 pounds, and everything like that. I wish that's how it worked. More likely, what's going to happen is I'm going to have like a fuzzy green halo, or I'm not going to get a very clean cut. And this is where you're going to get a lot of that, where if you're ever watching like the news forecast and everything like that, you ever watch nightly news or anything like that, and you're watching the weather, and all of a sudden, like the person's arm starts to disappear slightly, or you get something like that. That's because what's probably happening is they're standing too close to the green. They're getting too much of a bounce on the side there, and the computer can't isolate between the back wall and the talent, and they're actually going to not really cut nice and cleanly, which will sort of ruin our production value quite a bit. So how do we mitigate that, right? I mean, because again, well, the first thing you could do is obviously you can step away from the green screen. So if you can move all the way up forward and really try to isolate yourself. That's really the key with green screen is you're really trying to isolate yourself from the green wall. The green wall is its own beast. Our talent is over here. They should be completely separated. Even to the point that my light from my talent shouldn't really touch my green screen wall. Why? Because if it's able to actually key like that, what do you think it's going to do when it sees two different greens, a dark shadow green and a different color green? It might actually trick and confuse the computer and actually not get you a very nice clean rendering. Now, again, this is all subjective. I've been to, anyone been down to Union Station, down to the food court? I swear there's some unnamed guy there, right, that has like a little towel crumpled up that he puts up there, and he's keying perfect, like, tourist T-shirts. And yet I've seen going into a $250,000 TV studio where there's one little smudge on the wall, and they can't key, and they have to completely redo a $250,000 wall. So I've seen some crazy stuff with keying. It really depends on the software and what you're doing. Especially if you're doing a lot of movement. Obviously, this would not go very nicely for my keying because there's a lot of movement going on. You definitely need a lot more definition out of that. But back to lighting. So how am I going to light this? Well, I'm going to light me with my front light, my key, right? My key, my fill. I am going to light the wall, but I'm also going to need that backlight. And that backlight is going to be very important in this scenario because what I need to do with it is at the least I need to try to cancel out as much of the green as possible. So one little trick that I like to tell people is what is a perfect color to cancel out green? Red. Like a red or a magenta, right? So also known as minus green. So like right then, what do you think that if I want to go more green, what do you think it's called? Plus green, right? Yeah, and again, and I might put plus green in these backlights to get an extra glow and make this a little extra, bright and green, and make the computer make sure it can see 100% that is a green chroma key wall. I might put that minus green in my backlight on my shoulders, so that actually in real life, what you're going to see from me is that the whole back half of me is like a pinkish purple. What the camera sees is me and that wall, right? And again, you want to try to keep that isolated as much as possible. And the two worlds really should be, not mixing together. So you really don't want your talent, if you could avoid it, touching the green wall or getting into the lights for that. You really want to try to keep them as separate as possible. Does that make sense? Any questions?
I'm just really curious. Do other people have other people reported a sensation of like the more I look at you,
yeah,
against this, I start to get like dizzy. Have other people?
Well, you might be getting dizzy because it's like 120 degrees in here.
No, it's just. Does that cause perspective problems with like some other people, or is it just
me?
Me?
You probably are getting some perspective stuff because how much do you see in neon green walls, in the real world, right? And I'm also, conveniently walking back and forth, so your eyes are going to have some, trouble, watching me as I run around and move around this staging area. And again, I'll quickly close it just so you don't do it. But yes, it's an odd color, right? We don't usually see that in the world, which is why we use it as a perfect, keying color, because you're not going to see this. I'm not going to be walking out with a suit in neon green, most likely. Yeah, you don't know about a neon green suit that I have, right? right. But that's what it usually is. So it's probably a little bit weird, but again, that's just more, probably more to the fact that it's just a very bizarre color that you're probably not used to staring at. And I'll close it in a second after my final question.
But it's not going to confuse the camera.
It's all about the camera. We're just slaves to the camera right now. We're just, here to just, do the camera's bidding, and make sure that they can do what they want to do. Do we have a question?
Yeah. Is there a preference, or does it matter if you're painting or if you're using like a neon green fabric, or pros and cons
there's different ways to do key. This is actually what we call a hard cyc. It's designed that it's actually built into the wall and the floor, which gives you a nice seamless look. What do you not see? A corner, right? Because corners would give you a shadow, right? So this gives you a nice clean look with that. This is probably, the ideal way to do this, but this is obviously not the easiest way to do because you have a lot of construction to put one of these in. And again, back to that point where I said a little smudge on the wall could cost you, everything. You have to imagine all the finite, sanding and mud work that you have to do to make this completely smooth and seamless. You can use fabric. There are plenty of roll drops that are just a fabric. I've seen people make them out of this, and we'll close the green screen up right now for everyone. But I've seen green screens made out of a fabric curtain like this, right? What do you notice if it is a fabric curtain? What's the problem? Right, it's going to always want to wiggle around. If I, go close to it, you're going to see it's going to move around. Not probably the best thing in the world. You can do it. I've seen people try to start to pull it nice and tight. Try to use bungee cords and everything to try to catch the carriers and tighten them up so you get it. But where you really find it difficult, you could probably get it on a flat wall. where do you think you're going to have a lot of trouble trying to like tighten out a curtain? Corners, right? Corners are nearly impossible because no matter where I pull this curtain, we're never going to be able to get it completely smooth. So a lot of these hard cycles will actually go around the corner so that you actually get a completely seamless background. Because again, you don't want the shadowing, you don't want that in your final cut, although because that could mess with how everything cuts and acts. But good question. I've seen people do like rolls of paper. They have like seamless paper. That's a good one too if you're doing more for like photography or very small one-person shoots. You can put a roll of seamless paper up, pull it down, roll it out, sort of like what we're doing here with the hard cyc, and then shoot off of that. And that's good because if you're not doing a lot of green screen, you can then just rip it off at the end of the day, crumble it up, and throw it out. You're not having to actually have a whole hard green screen. Imagine what I would have to do if I came in here and I rented this space and I said, you know what, I don't want green. I want black. I want a nice black neutral surface all up the wall. What do you think I have to do? Paint everything, right? Well, that costs quite a bit of money to have to paint this. And then can you imagine how much green screen paint is? Then you have to repaint, usually when you rent out a studio like this, you then have to repaint the floor back to what it was originally. So this can get into a pretty costly thing to do, green screen hard paint. And again, as I said, that smudge again, what happens if I put a smudge on it? Do you think I could just paint one little spot? Nope, and some of this higher end green screen paint, if I put just an extra layer of paint on it, that will throw off the key. So you really almost have to, like when you're going to redo your green screen, you almost have to repaint the whole entire floor, wall, everything. So that's fine in this little space here, but you get into a studio that is, 100 by 200 feet long, a big movie studio, that could get into a pretty big, investment to do. Question in the back.
So in regards to the paint, you can't just use any common house paint. It has to be a specific green screen paint.
Ideally, you're going to use a specific green screen paint. And the reason why, because you're trying to get a pigment that's unnatural. If anyone's ever watched a Home Depot or a Lowe's paint, right, do they see much neon green getting spit out? Not really, right? They can sort of make it by putting different combinations in, but you're still just putting very little paint into like a white. A lot of this paint that you get like from the keying companies are especially formulated that it's only going to be like a really, really, really green, high, like a very fluorescent green pigment in it, which is going to work better for the keying. What you see here is actually probably one of the basic chroma key greens. To do more of those like high def movies that we were talking about and stuff where we're going to have a lot of movement or we're going to have like an explosion of little splinters and everything that we have to try to key off. We have to get all the background off of every little splinter, keyed off properly. Why movies cost so much money, right? Is actually even greener, like the water bottle right there. Throw that, just put that water bottle up there. Everyone see that green on the where she's holding it in her hand, right? I mean, there's keying paint that is that neon green, which again, when we're looking at it, would completely make our eyes. I mean, like my eyes are tearing up right now just sitting there thinking of how fluorescent green some of these keying paints get, because again, it just gives you that. It just helps that computer ever so slightly, just give a little bit cleaner, crisper definition, and allows those really high-end, custom graphics and everything like that. So again, it really depends on what you're going to do, but for the most part, you want to stick with a specific green paint from one of the keying companies. Any questions? Yes. Oh, you can come up with a couple more while I left. I'm going to get a sip of water, but
This is backtracking to other points you made. One, when you were talking about the lighting for the background, I was wondering, I was thinking about the Charlie Rose show, and it seems like they're sitting at this table, and then there's just this black void. So I was curious, if you're lighting this black curtain, are you going to then see the black curtain? And if you didn't light it and you made a point of not allowing, having your talent far enough away from it that they weren't casting shadow, how do you get that black void? That's one question.
Sure. Well, I don't know the show, so I can't speak on it specifically. I would probably assume there's a couple different ways to do that. They could perhaps leave all the light off the black curtain, move the talent up forward out of the light so that there's absolutely virtually no light hitting the back curtain, and they sort of just disappear and the curtain just fades out into nothing.
I think that's probably it.
You could also do my friend the green screen again, right? I mean, there's nothing that stops you from, everyone wants to key and put like, a photo of the Bahamas or anything behind them, right? But there's nothing that stops me from putting just a solid color, right? I can key just a flat black wall behind me on a chroma key green set. So you could do it possibly that way too. So there's a couple of different tricks that you can probably do. And I don't know which one that they do, but that's probably a good bet of how they're doing it. They're probably doing one of those two methods to do that.
That's a great answer, especially when you didn't know what I was talking about. When you were talking about you were moving into the studio scenario and you were sort of gradually stepping up from like the one-person shot
Yes.
to two people, then this goes back to my first question again, my confusion about the angle. So like let's say you got the 3 cameras. So you're the person whose camera left. And so is your key for this camera going to be coming basically from the same point that the camera is?
If, in the most literal sense, if you're looking for the flattest newscaster light, then yes. So if I was standing here, my key is probably right there, right above my camera. My fill is probably coming from this direction over here to just give me a soft fill. My backlight is probably actually going to be closer to over here coming in. So it's not like exactly a specific triangle. You might have things skewed a little bit. Again, if I switch it over to this camera like here, and if I was doing just a very literal speech or something like that, and I was just looking directly at the camera like this, I might have my key directly in front of me, and I might come in with 2 fills. So, I mean, it really depends on what you want to do. If you're doing something a little bit more artsy, maybe you do push them to the side, and you get a harsh key on the one side of your face, soft fill on the other.
So the initial scenario when you were talking about just the 2 lights and the 45 degrees angle, that's only if you've only got those 2 lights for that wrap. Once you get into a backlight, you're unlikely to have a straight 45 split from the camera angle. Is that correct?
If I got, it's not only like that. I mean, if you want that wrap, you're going to put the 2 at the 45. Again, if you are doing a camera there, you might just do the 1 directly, with a couple of other fills on the side. You might, if you only have those 3 lights and you want the 1 key right above the camera, maybe it's there. Maybe the fill comes in over here, and maybe you skew your backlight a little bit more over here, and maybe I'm doing something like something like this, or my over-the-shoulder poses that I like to practice, as well.
Thank you.
That was a good over-the-shoulder look. I don't want to hear my Snickers over here on this side. That was an awesome over-the-shoulder look. So yes. Any other questions? But these are good stuff so far.
I don't know how much you, or what experience you have with like independent filmmakers, but like people who are just getting started or really low budget. What do you think of like do-it-yourself lighting options? I was reading about like for different like color temperatures or whatever, like someone paints like light bulbs and like has those for like different color temperatures, or do you know anything about that, and what do you think?
Oh my, you don't have $250,000 to start out?
No.
What a shame. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I mean, isn't that an industry standard that you start with $250,000 and start building your rig? I mean, I thought that was pretty natural. Well, I mean, for colors, for example, right? They make the little plastic filters, the gel, Roscoe or Lee. I'm sure you've probably seen or heard of it. I mean, those are cheap, right? I mean, a sheet of that is only like $7. So there really is no real barrier for someone to have a single light, like a 5600 daylight, and then buy 10 different sheets of gel for $70 to change the color. I mean, there was some companies that used to make like a colorine, which was actually like a dippable thing that you could dip lamps and everything into on your own. It was incredibly toxic, and they've discontinued it. So you're probably not going to find too much of that colorine anymore. Again, if you are looking for certain fluorescents, and LEDs do come in different screw-in LED bases, so you can get like a 3200 balanced, a 5600 balanced, and do something like that as well. Which is probably what I think you're probably talking about with the color. Yeah, I don't think anyone pre-colored them. If they did,
No, they're saying they were like regular, and there was like a high intensity or whatever spray paint in different colors, and they use the different colors that way.
I don't know. To me, I feel skeptical about that. That feels bad. I mean, they definitely make pre-dipped, color-corrected lamps that you can get different colors. I don't know if I would want to necessarily spray anything. The only thing that I knew on the market is really that coloring that you actually dip the light, and you can only do it up to like a 40-watt bulb, like your old like Christmas lights and everything. Have you ever seen a Christmas light, one of the really old-fashioned ones, the color would flake off? That's sort of because that was the premise that they were doing. They were just dipping a whole bunch of lights and letting it glow.
You can actually get the pack of gels for like a pack of gels for under like $20 now.
Sure, exactly. You go to an awesome company like Barbizon, right? Shameless plug, right? And you can go buy a whole bunch of gels. I mean, again, yes. I mean, you can do this on the cheap, right? I mean, we're talking about some higher end lights. I mean, there's nothing that stops you in this world from doing your first shot with taking a bunch of table lamps and hanging them around. I mean, right? Or you get one of those Home Depot little scoop lights that you can just hang and clip on and shine. I mean, it's not perfect, right? But I mean, you can do that. I mean, that's why I said lighting is a mix of art and just craft. I mean, there's a specific way to do certain stuff, but it is a little bit more artsy, so you can experiment and play with it a little bit more. So you definitely don't, by any means, need to start as an aspiring filmmaker to have a $250,000 budget to buy tons of lights. I mean, you can get away with just a couple of lights. Remember, if you're also doing a film, you're probably going to either be doing a lot of set up, shoot a quick little scene, tear down and reset up again, or you're probably going to be doing a run and gun thing, which you're probably most likely going to just be in the beginning stages, just running around with a bounce and going crazy with it. I mean, we've talked about so far, again, inside of a studio interviews, more for that TV stuff. Film lighting is a completely different, beast. I mean, because again, you're either using super powerful lights, right? You're using lights. Has anyone ever been onto a TV studio or a movie studio or anything like that? I mean, their Fresnels, right, are no longer these little things. Their Fresnels are usually like 2 feet wide, that are they lift up on a big ginormous crane because they're just pumping a tremendous amount of light. And if they're not doing that, they're usually doing a lot of bounces, flags, stuff like that, trying to control natural light to try to push it in and get enough light onto the area that they're lighting up. They're not going through and putting hundreds of little tiny lights over everybody to do that for the most part, unless they're in a very specific inside studio. So so your big stuff, you might be just easier to just use Mother Nature, use the sun, and run around with some bounces and flags and stuff like that to try to make it work for you. Well, we got 19 minutes, everyone. 19 minutes. We did pretty good. I know it's a little warm in here. I know everyone. I think we lost like 2 or 3 people as they passed out in from the heat. Any other last-second questions and everything? You got your mic next to you. You know the drill.
I don't know the color stuff. You're talking about blue and red light. In the beginning, you were talking about the panel. You can go something to fluorescent or something to
sure.
What the difference
We'll
of the
recap.
lights
This is 5600. This is 5600 Kelvin, aka daylight.
Okay.
It's a very blue type of a light.
Daylight blue.
Daylight blue. If you heard that, again, you're going to hear it as daylight, 5600 Kelvin. This is what you're getting out of it. It's a very blue type of a light. Mm-hmm. The reverse spectrum in what we're usually doing is something to the effect of 3200 tungsten, which is what you're getting out of these conventional fixtures right now. So out of my hand right now, you can see that I'm getting a 3200. You can see that it's a lot more orange. Yeah. Again, this is what you're probably going to get more out of. You're getting this out of your incandescent lamps. Think your light bulbs on your desk. This is what you're going to be in. That, again, is a little bit more unnatural. I mean, it's more like sunlight. This is actually what sunlight is closer to. Sunlight is actually not amber. Sunlight is actually not this amber color. It's actually more blue in the light. So when I talk about varying it, that light, the lights I was telling you about can actually do that all in one switch. I could just change the dial. It will automatically go between the two. Otherwise, if you don't have that, the only other way to do it is to swap lamps. You can't swap a lamp in an incandescent, one of these old school, lights. You can only put the lamp into it. Fluorescents, you can actually swap. They do make fluorescents that are, colored to be, 3200 or 5600. So all you do is change the lamps in them, and now you have a light that can do both of them. Okay. And when in doubt, we could always use our friend gel, right? That can also, put that gel onto it. So you could use the soft gel version of this. So if you have that blue, you could use the the amber or orange color to change the color temperature with that. Any other questions?
What is the price range for lights like these?
Ooh, that's a good question. No one asked about that. I sold you all on lights, and I know you're all going to be lining up to go place your LED lighting order, right? Well, are you already Googling them, right? LED lights are definitely going to be, higher end on the market. Depending on what you're looking at, you could be looking at anywhere for an a la carte light, several $100s to several $1,000s a light. Kits are going to be pretty expensive. I mean, you can get that like that backpack kit and everything like that. I think in the $2,000 to $3,000 range, depending on how many lights and everything you have into it. So your LEDs are definitely going to be a bit of an investment. Your conventional fixtures, your Fresnels, what we have up here, ones that are going to use those lamps that are getting a lot more energy hungry. They're going to get very hot. You can get these, in the couple of $100 range. So again, it's one of those balancing acts. The problem with these is, again, you have to replace lamps all the time. They get very hot. You can't use batteries, so you got a lot of other barriers opposed to the LEDs. So what I would say if you could do is I would say save up and get a good LED lighting kit, and then, use it as much as possible and make as much money with it and try to get, return your investment on it because, that's probably the best way to do it. But I mean, again, depending on your budget, if you only have a couple $100s to start out, incandescent fixtures might work for you, especially in a studio where you have power. You might not need all the, the energy efficiency because we have plenty of power up here, so we can just plug them in.
What would that be right there?
This one right here? This is, again, probably in that, about a little over, I was just going to say probably a shy over $1,000 range. How's my spot checking pricing and everything so far? Good? Wow. There we go. And for my women in film and video friends, I will even probably try to give you as much as I can. So, call me up later and we can definitely make a deal and try to help you out because we're definitely trying to hear. That's why I'm here tonight, right? I'm here to get you guys excited about lighting, to get you, to make it less scary because, again, you definitely want to know what you're doing, before like going online and just going, oh, I'll just go buy, this, I'm here to try to be a resource for you and help you and set up the perfect rig for you. So again, depending on what you're doing, I mean, someone might say, oh, I'm a young filmmaker. What do I need for that? Someone might be doing just pure interviews. Those kits are going to be completely different. And again, they're going to be a different price. I know one of you are going to come up and say, I have a $250,000 package for you. Brad, help me out. And I'm going to go sell you, 200, brand new LEDs. I mean, that's what we're here to work with. But that's what I want to be here for you guys as a resource to, for all your lighting needs, basically.
Do you guys rent at all?
The question is, do we rent? And the answer is we do not at Barbizon rent. There are definitely companies that we work with. And a lot of spaces, for example, right here in the studio, we sell stuff here all the time. This is a space that will rent you the space, rent you the lights. There's other companies just sitting there thinking in the region here, Washington Source or, like Atmo that, are just purely rental companies that will just give you a light for a day or two, for a fee, and that's the end of it. What we try to focus on just the sales, new sales, no used, no nothing, and we try to get you, again, into what you are looking for and, find the lights for your purpose that you can grow with and, continue on in all your future lighting endeavors. Right? Okay, well, any last call for questions? Going once. One more question.
All right. Let me just hit you with this abstract one.
Oh, ooh. Here we go. I'm ready for it.
Why is it that you're not going to be able to answer this anyway? Why is it that
challenge?
No offense, because you've been such a tremendous resource so far. Why does daylight, if it's actually in the blue color temperature range, why does it look warm intuitively?
Well, that's a good question. So, like true day, I assume you're talking about true daylight, right? Like the actual sun, right? Believe it or not, the sun is way more blue or higher color temperature than even this. It's like 12,000 plus, and that's almost double that. That's what you're actually seeing. Again, I think it's just, more of the, just how, we perceive it, in the world with everything bouncing around, clouds, bouncing off of everything, that we perceive a little bit warm. This is a whole different course that we're going, that we're not going to go get into tonight, but this is back to, like, again, what a little bit more of my background was where I first started, which was actually theatrical, right? because theatrical is making the perception of this. And again, same deal like when we do on stage at night, what are we using? We're using dark blues, right? But nighttime's not blue. If if you walk out, you're not getting actually hit by blue light, So, you're all with a little bit of a perception with that. And I think that sort of became, like amber, everyone, because, right, what do we do as little kids when we're drawing a picture of the sun, or anyone else who uses crayons even as an adult? You're probably, you're not drawing your sun blue, with little blue rays coming out of it. You're probably going with an orange or a yellow. But again, that's just, because, we look up in the sky, we see this big bright ball of orange, brightness, and we go, oh, it's orange, but really the color temperature that you're getting is, again, in that blue range there. Woo, I got it. Boom. Well, thank you all so much. I hope this was informative for you. If you have any questions, I'll give you my business card and everything, and you can feel free to call me anytime. My personal cell's on it, so feel free to late night chat for lighting. If you have any other questions, we can take this offline, via email, or you can catch me outside when I quickly run outside and find some fresh air, because again, we're now up to about 140 degrees, I swear, in this room. So I thank you all for coming out tonight. Again, I hope this was helpful, and have a nice, safe evening.